Hello everyone, and welcome to the Miss Pink Digital Podcast, home to everything digital marketing, brand building, and tech. And on today's episode, we are going to be talking about the current question that is in people's minds, or at least in my mind anyway, and that is broad better? And this is in reference to targeting within ads activity on any platform. It doesn't just have to be Google ads. I'm talking Facebook ads, TikTok ads, Snapchat ads. All of them. Is broad better? So the reason why I thought this would be an interesting podcast topic is because lately, over the past year or so, with the expansion of AI, with the developments of machine learning technologies that these platforms are using, they have been shifting over, specifically Facebook and Google, I've noticed it constantly, to a model where you do broader targeting and kind of let AI and machine learning and the platforms do all of the work. And I think that I have seen instances where this has been very successful, especially when I've been trying to scale out accounts, but I've also seen instances where this isn't necessarily the beneficial approach to take. And I think it's slightly problematic that these platforms are so heavily pushing this broad or nothing narrative, especially when it comes to beginners who have not been in the platforms for as long or have not had as much experience experimenting with what may work, what doesn't, and will just have to, out of necessity, almost blindly listen to what the platform is telling us. And there is an element here where, whilst yes, there definitely are positives with going broad and leaning on that AI, and I will touch into that in a minute, there are elements of, obviously the platforms are going to want you to spend as much as your budget possible on those platforms. And an easier way to kind of spend that budget is through broader targeting. And that's kind of problematic within itself, although I have noticed cheaper CPCs and CPMs when we do go broader, which is a positive because it allows you to kind of generate more clicks within your budget. Doesn't mean those clicks are going to be beneficial for a business. So yes, I'm very much in mixed opinions on this topic. But let's go into, is broad better, where broader targeting will benefit you and where it won't benefit you. So the first thing I'm going to touch on is that piece around budget, ad spend, and instances where broad is better and instances where you shouldn't just blindly rely on broad targeting to kind of get the results for you. So going broader and broadening out your targeting is a really great way to scale your ad spend. If you are a business that is really looking to scale going forwards and you have a lot of budget you're ready to deploy in ad activity and you're struggling to deploy it, then going broad is a very good way to deploy that budget, especially if you have that paired with really good quality creative, your website user experience is great, and you have looked at your marketing more holistically to kind of give the user a full funnel experience that's positive to cater to that broad targeting. I actually did do a previous podcast episode on ways you can scale out your ad spend, and a lot of it relied on broadening out that targeting and really utilizing broad strategies within Facebook, within Google, within TikTok, and really utilizing those campaigns that are a bit more AI driven and AI heavy. So this is when broad is great. Obviously, like I say, you do need the assets and the user experience to back up broad targeting. Like, I wouldn't just recommend broadly targeting users if your ad creative isn't great and you don't have a great website experience and you don't have any other ways that you kind of follow up with the user. But scaling out ad spend broad is definitely a better way to do this. Instances where broad would not be as beneficial for you, or I'd recommend testing it incrementally under smaller budgets, is if you don't have the budget in place. Obviously, the broader you go, yes, it can reduce CPMs, specifically in platforms like Facebook, and you can get lower cost per clicks. It does also mean that you risk reaching a high volume of users, getting a high volume of clicks that aren't going to be beneficial for your business and aren't going to be quality clicks. And that means you risk wasting that ad spend on users who aren't your relevant target audience or your relevant demographic and aren't going to lead into conversion. So you do risk wasting a lot of budget on broad if it's not executed correctly. And if you don't have the budget to kind of wait out that learning period that broad campaigns tend to go through whilst AI is learning, and you don't have the budget to kind of test what approach works for you, then going broad or going all in on the broad targeting is not going to be the most cost effective or efficient approach for your business to take. I would say you can still test broader targeting, but on a much smaller scale, and have the bulk of your activity be that targeted, relevant reach that brings you your revenue and ROI. Another instance when broad may not be better at the moment is if you have a very niche product, a very niche target audience, and a very niche industry where it's very easy for broad targeting to reach completely the wrong users. There are a few industries that I've worked in where this can happen a lot, where it's a very niche demographic within an industry, and it's very easy for the wrong demographic to be typing a similar search query into, say, Google. So it's very easy to get crossover there. And that's when you need to start maybe narrowing in on the audience targeting to really make sure you're bringing in as relevant users as possible. I would say as well, instances where you're using broad, but you have very tight ROI or cost per acquisition or CAC targets in place, to use it in conjunction with a bidding strategy that allows you to retain control. So if it's in Google or Facebook or TikTok, adding cost per acquisition targets. So in Facebook, it'd be like a cost cap. In Google, it would be target CPA or target ROAS bidding. And that way it still allows you to utilize the broad audience targeting and get that reach and visibility in conjunction with telling the platform what you want to achieve from that broad activity. This is when I tend to use my broad targeting. I typically only use broad targeting or broaden out my targeting in instances where I want to retain some form of control. And so I'll use a broad audience targeting in conjunction with a target CPA bidding strategy or a target ROAS bidding strategy. But yes, that is the quick one of today. Is broad better? In some instances it is, and some instances it isn't. It's all about what your budget is, the type of users you need to target, and your ROI/CPA goals you have, and how restricting they are / how lenient you can be, as well as the creative you have and your overall user experience. This all ties in to your strategy of is broad better, especially if you're looking to scale out your business. I would definitely look at all of these factors before taking the plunge into broad. I would also recommend not necessarily blindly following in-platform advice, and definitely listen to it, because like I say, I run broad campaigns all the time and they work incredibly well because they're executed correctly. But I have always taken the advice of the platforms with a pinch of salt and then listened to other experts in the industry and tested things out myself to really find the direction I want to go in. And that's what everyone needs to do when it comes to any form of digital marketing, not just paid advertising. It's not a one size fits all scenario. You're going to have to test and find what works well for you and your niche. But I hope that was helpful. And thank you guys for listening. I will speak to you again soon.